Present.
Trustee Lindsay? Trustee Souza? Chair Galutaria?
Here.
And Trustee Waihe is excused.
We have quorum.
We do.
Okay, mahalo, everybody. We have a quorum. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with HRS Chapter 92, Sunshine Law, and the OHA bylaws. It is viewable via live stream at www.oha.org/live stream and available for in-person attendance at the Mauli Ola boardroom right here in Honolulu. Pursuant to Article 12 of our bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order for small boards, we will observe the following procedures. Trustees must be recognized by the chair before speaking. Motions do not require a second. The chair may participate fully in debate and vote on all matters. Informal discussion is permitted while no motion is pending. Please observe order and decorum per Article 17 of the bylaws. We will now proceed to new business. For each item, we will receive public testimony followed by trustee discussion and then the vote. We will now take up the first item on the agenda under new business presentation. Before that, I'd like to ask our kapuhana to very good morning to you. Please introduce your staff. Kalamai.
Aloha kakahiaka, Chair, Vice Chair, Trustee. Joining us today in person, we have our Investment Director and Interim CFO, Ryan Lee. We have our General Counsel, Everett Ota, Senior Director of Strategy and Implementation, Elena Farden, Senior Director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs, Hailama Farden, Director of Advocacy, Lena Alale, Compliance Archaeologist, Kamakana Ferreira, Director of Uiwi Wellbeing and Aina Momona, Kuike Kamakea Ohelo, Director of Communications, Bill Brennan, Senior IT Systems Engineer and Administrator, Kevin Cha, and IT Systems Engineer and Administrator, Daniel Santos. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Look forward to your presentations today. We will now proceed to new business. For each item, we will receive public testimony followed by trustee discussion and then the vote. We will now take up our first agenda item under new business, the presentation by the administration, an update on completed repatriation efforts. Kapuana?
Mahalo, Chair. At this time, I'd like to invite Kamakana Ferreira and Kuike Kamakea Ohelo to the table.
As they proceed to the table, trustees, the presentation will be about their repatriation activities in Germany, North Ireland, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., and New York and Chicago. Okay, mahalo. We will begin with public testimony. Firstly, before you folks give your presentation, has anybody signed up to testify in person? Leanne?
There are no testifiers, Chair.
Okay, very good. Kamakana, please proceed.
All right. Well, trustees, there is a presentation to go along with this. You guys have the handout. They need to load it on the screen, though. All right, so as the agenda title states, I'm going over the recent repatriation trips that have occurred in April to April 22nd to May 3rd for it's a Europe trip and a U.S. East Coast repatriation. These repatriations were previously budgeted for in the preceding year, and it was approved. There was an internal activation memo in January of this year to inform the administration about the upcoming repatriation trips that were occurring, and also included an itinerary. And I also provided a presentation to the BAE about this trip in April as well. So The first couple of slides is a little bit of a review to recap of the purpose of the repatriation that's occurring. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of a recap, but I think it's important to set the context of why we went on this repatriation mission. First, we were negotiating a shared stewardship agreement for 2 Ki'i with the Prussian Cultural Heritage Foundation, also known as the SBK, in Berlin, Germany. This is really a continuation from a claim that started way back in 2018. We were successful in getting back everything that we requested. 27 EV kupuna, 12 funerary objects were all repatriated back in 2022. However, there were 2 ki'i that were outstanding. There were issues about right of possession. Allegedly, King Kalakaua had allowed their exportation, and so there was some dispute about whether or not they should be returned. But we were encouraged to continue discussions on that. And so we have been entering into discussions with them. Additional research has occurred. We've also been able to gather a lot of political support. We've gotten support from the Consulate General of Germany, Mayor Bisson, Governor Green, as well as the Secretary of the Interior. So there are a lot of eyes on this, and I think we can make this happen. It's just going to take a little bit more patience. The second repatriation that was occurring was for 3 EV Kapuna from the Ulster Museum in Northern Ireland. Again, this is a continuation from an existing claim from 2021. OHA was actually alerted about the possibility of EV Kapuna at this institution from Council Member Inaba on the Big Island. He had been working with some Native Americans who were also working with institutions in Ireland, Northern Ireland, and we had been alerted of possible EV Kapuna over there. And so we reached out to them back in 2020, actually, before the claim. We were doing research and found out there was 5 EV Kupuna that were listed in their inventory, and then as well as 5 sacred objects that were of interest that were incorporated with either human hair or teeth. And so they were very receptive to the claim. The only problem was that they were only able to locate 2 EV Kapuna at the time. You keep in mind now, this is also during COVID, so part of their store facilities were closed, and they were also had limited staffing. It's also not uncommon with some of these larger institutions to have holdings that are found a little bit later. But there were a commitment from their staff that they would keep searching through their archives. And fortunately, in November 2024, we got notified that they found the additional 3 EV Kapuna. And so immediately we made arrangements to go back and recover those EV. The last repatriations that occurred, these weren't OHA claims, but we were invited to participate in cultural ceremonies for the repatriation of 2 cultural objects. One from the Peabody Essex Museum, which was the Akua Hulu Manu of Kekuaokalani, and the other at the Smithsonian, which was the Aha'ula of Kekuaokalani. Next slide, please. Again, this is a bit of recap of what was in April. You know, this work ties directly to the BOT Executive Policy Manual in regards to EV Kapuna and international engagement, and also aligns with our strategic plan foundations pertaining to Ohana and Mo'omehu, and our strategic direction for health outcomes. Next slide, please. So as with any work that we've done with Hui Iwi Kuomo, there's usually a pre-departure ceremony that takes place the night before. Sometimes there are members from the team that are flying in from outer islands, and it's good to just gather and put ourselves in the right mindset. And so there was an Ava ceremony with Mea Ai at the Kavaivai Collective at Native Books on Nu'uanu. We had it at about 6 p.m. It was arranged by Hui Iwi Kuomo. The kahu was Kamana'o Pono Crab. Myself was in attendance, as well as Kuike. Trustee Danahuna was there. Members of Hui Iwi Kuomo and other Hawaiian cultural practitioners that Hui Iwi Kuomo work with. In terms of who OHA funded travelers, we paid for 5 individuals, 2 OHA staff, which is myself and Kuike, and then Edward Halealoha Ayau, who's the executive director of Hui Iwi Kuomo, as well as Uluvehi Cashman and Ko'iahi Punua, who are the kaula in training for Hui Iwi Kuomo. Hui Iwi Kuomo travelers who OHA did not pay for was Mana Caceres, his wife Kalehua Caceres, their daughter Kamana Caceres, Holona Tanner, Kale Velasco, and Kioki Vizcaya. Other individuals that were there for Hui Iwi Kuomo that weren't at the ceremony but met up with us at LAX airport on our way to Europe was Na'alehu Anthony and Bryson Ho, who were media contractors under Hui'iwi Kumo. Again, that's not something that OA procured or paid for. That's all who Hui'iwi Kumo paid for. Next slide, please. So if you notice, that was on April 21st. We departed the day after, April 22nd. It was about close to 24 hours of traveling. So we arrived in Berlin actually on the evening of April 23rd. And right the next day, April 24th, we were going to consultation with the SBK at the Humboldt Forum. The Humboldt Forum was selected because that's where these two ki'i are currently held. We met with their director, a few of their attorneys, as well as their curator of Pacific Collections. Next slide, please. So the consultation was invaluable in that I feel like some things in discussions in the email dialogue, there were some things that were lost in translation, especially the technical points. And so, but we were able to come to agreement on these technical points, and I highlighted them here, mainly transportation of the ki'i. We had suggested a hand carry option where we would purchase a seat for the akua, and they would be accompanied by an individual. And I think they didn't understand what we meant by that, because they were proposing, well, can we build a custom crate and have it freighted via FedEx or UPS, which would have costed close to $10,000. Whereas this option is cheaper, but it's also more culturally appropriate in that the akua would be up in the cabin and wouldn't be below people, and they would be supervised at all times. This has actually been done before. We've done it in a few other instances of buying a seat for the akua and somebody sitting next to them. It works. We just need a little bit of coordination with the airlines to do it because it's a little bit unusual for them, but we can make it happen. Other questions that came up. So oftentimes when international institutions do exhibitions in the United States, they have a surety of an immunity of seizure where their item is not going to get seized by U.S. Customs, or and it'll be allowed to return to its country of origin. Now, in this particular case, it's a little bit unique because if we enter into this agreement with the SBK, the ki'i would essentially be co-owned, and so the immunity from seizure wasn't an exact fit. And so we had been in discussions early on with the Department of State and their attorneys, and they had advised that we go with an export certificate for the newly passed STOP Act. Now, the STOP Act, which was recently passed, was to stop the exportation of any items that are eligible under NAGPRA. And so they had suggested that we apply for an export certificate. This information was provided to the SBK, and then they were okay with that route. And so the export certificate will be inserted into the agreement as one of the terms. That's something that OA would have to fill out for the ki'i to return back to Berlin if that happens. We also were able to gain clarity on insurance terms. There was some confusion about whether or not the SBK wanted an appraisal of the ki'i, but that wasn't the case. They more so wanted insurance that in the event that they were possibly damaged in either party's possession, who would pay for the restoration costs if there were to be restoration. And so we were able to come to agreement on that. And so the next steps were for the SBK's attorneys to revise the draft agreement. It would take them about a couple of months. We're a little bit past that window, but I don't know how, institutions in Europe, they tend to take time off during the summer. And so we're expecting, though, to get a revised draft probably in early September. And after that, that draft would go to our Corp Council for review. We also learned that signing of the agreement would not need to wait for their biannual board meetings. It seems like they're very on board and solution oriented with trying to make this happen. They had said that their board is aware of this and that they could arrange for a special session. It would take them about 4 weeks to schedule. And so once we come to an agreement, we don't have to wait for their biannual meetings that usually take place in December or June. So we'd be able to expedite the process. Other things, next steps to occur, the SBK is to examine whether or not the items have any pesticides or other chemicals utilized. This is standard practice. A lot of sacred objects that are in institutions, unfortunately, were treated with different chemicals over the years. What this means is that when we bring them back, they shouldn't actually be handled so much. They should be protected and would be more so for educational purposes than having them handled by a group out of safety concerns. And then in terms of OHA follow-up, we're to provide guidance on any kind of exhibition display, if there would be one, guidance on past restorative actions that have been taken. And then what's not on here, we are also exploring appropriate facilities on Maui for these ki'i, or at least one of them anyway. We're actively in discussions now with a few possibilities, and also we met with Hailama yesterday to discuss some of these issues, and because his role will be very important in the cultural protocols going forward. So that I felt it was very positive at this event. Walking away from it, I felt like we should be able to execute an agreement fairly soon and maybe have these ki'i back sometime next year. Kuiki, did you want to add anything about this one?
If there's any questions later. Just wait for questions. Yeah.
We can wait for questions. It just afforded them the opportunity. Okay, next slide, please. So after that was completed, we got on a plane, transited through London and went to Dublin. We waited a couple days. We got there on a Saturday. The museum was not open, so we had to wait. And so we actually had some downtime, which was nice because it was a lot of traveling just to get there. So we were participating in the repatriation ceremony at the Ulster Museum in Belfast, Northern Ireland on Monday, April 28th. Next slide, please. All right. As with most ceremonies that we've done and participated in, there's first a private ceremony that occurs, usually behind the scenes in a room without any windows or with shutters. And it's to go through cultural protocols and also to prepare the iwi kupuna for transport. Next, there was a public ceremony at the Ulster Museum Green Room. We had the Consulate General, James Applegate. Beforehand, we always interface with the U.S. embassies and the respective consulates. They're usually very helpful with interfacing with the airports and Customs Border Patrol, and they're usually also very willing to participate in any kind of public ceremonies that are associated with repatriation. Their CEO, Catherine Thompson, also spoke. Kuike spoke. At this point, unfortunately, I felt a little bit ill and lost my voice. I was supposed to speak, but Kuike handled it quite well. There was also Monica Caceres, Kalihua Caceres from Hui Iwi Kuamo'o, and then Kamana Caceres that provided a brief Olelo Hawaii. After the event, there was a formal signing of the transfer of possession, the support letter provided by the U.S. consulate, and then also presentation of makana. Next slide, please. This is just a photo of the group that spoke on the Hawaiian side, and that's the CEO, Catherine Thompson. This was also shared in the BBC News as well as our own website. Next slide, please. The next stop after this transited into to the East Coast for the Hui Iwi Kuamo'o ceremonies. The first repatriation ceremony occurred at Harvard Peabody Museum on April 30th in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Next slide, please. For this repatriation ceremony, it had all been previously arranged by Hui Iwi Kuamo'o. It was for the Akua Hulu Manu of Kekua Okalani that was claimed under NAGPRA as a descendant who's also a member of Hui Iwi Kuamo'o. So under NAGPRA, it also allows for a level of public notice in the Federal Register, which was posted in the Hawaii Tribune Herald, but there was no other descendants that had come forward. So the claim was allowed to proceed under the claimant unopposed. There was a public ceremony at Harvard Divinity Hall. The kahu was Dr. Kamana Opono Crab. Speakers from the Harvard side, we had their director, Dr. Jane Pickering, their curator, Dr. Ingrid Algren, and Deanna Bird, who is their associate NAGPRA director. Speakers on the Hawaii side included Dr. Kaeo Duarte, who's the VP of Aina Puahi at Kamehameha Schools. Now, beforehand, Hui Iwi Kuamo'o had been engaged with Kamehameha Schools as a potential long-term option for building a cultural facility. That's still tentative plans, but that's their level of involvement and commitment in this, and that's why Dr. Duarte was there. There's also Dr. Kamana Beamer of Aloha Kuamo'o Aina, and of course, Edward Haleo Aloha Ayau, who is the executive director for Hui Iwi Kuamo'o, and then Kuike spoke on behalf of OHA. Trustee Ahuna was also in attendance there. And there was a ceremony with Aha'ava, presentation of makana, which included lehulu and limaile. Next slide, please. After this ceremony, right the next day, going south down to DC, is repatriation at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. Now, this is actually the support center, the Ahu'ula was not at the main institution. It was at the support center where it was already prepped for travel in a case. Next slide, please. But there was also a public ceremony that was held there, though. This, for the Ahu'ula, it was a little bit different. It wasn't done under NAGPRA. It was done under the National Museum of the American Indian Act, which is very similar to NAGPRA. It predated NAGPRA by 1 year, and it's only specific to the Smithsonian. It follows similar rules in terms of notification and process. It's my understanding that also no other descendants came forward except for the claimant under Hui'iwi Kuamo'o. So the public ceremony was, well, it wasn't at Harvard, it was at the Smithsonian. Excuse me, that was an error. But the kahu was also Dr. Kamano Na'opono Crab. Speakers from the Smithsonian side included the director, Dr. Kirk Johnson, Dr. Rebecca Johnson, Associate Director of Science, the curator, Dr. Joshua Bell, and then Helena Kapuna Reynolds, who's from Hawaii, but is their associate curator. Speakers again on the Hawaiian side was Dr. Kuea Duarte, Kamana Beamer, Edward Halealoha Ayau, and again, Kuike, and Trustee Ahuna actually spoke this time. There was also a ceremony again of Aha Ava. There's hula and oli, presentation of makana. There was a canvas print of the Battle of Kuamo'o by Brooke Parker that was presented, and Leiniho Palawa and Lehulu and Lemaile as well. Next slide, please. This is a picture that was also hosted online, and Hui'iwi Kuamo'o was comfortable with us sharing. Here you can see the Ahu'ula as well as Halealoha Ayau in the middle holding the Akua Hulu Manu. Next slide, please. And then the return trip was a little bit of a challenge in that there was only, from my understanding, there was only one type of passenger plane that could actually accommodate the length of the Ahu'ula, which was a 777. So they had to land in Kona and fly via United to receive the Ahu'ula. But the ultimate destination was Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, who Hui'iwi Kuamo'o had previously brokered an agreement with to temporarily curate the items until they think of a permanent solution. Again, tentatively, some kind of cultural center to be built in collaboration with Kamehameha schools. But when they arrived, it was attended by, at this point, it was only Kuike. There was also KS Haumana, Flores Ohana, and Sai Ohana that was also in attendance. At the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park Curation Facility, they were again greeted by KS Haumana and presented with makana. There was a private ceremony in the curation room, and that's where these items currently are at. In terms of the iwi that were returned, they were placed in the care of Hui'iwi Kuamo'o for reburial, mainly because they had handled the reburial of the 2 iwi that had previously come back, and we wanted them to be reunited with those iwi. And it's my understanding that the reburial has already been completed. Next slide, please. In terms of repatriation costs, again, this was a budget that was previously approved last year. It was for 2 OA staff, 3 Hui'iwi Kuamo'o members, approximately $6,302.24 per person. It's an approximate total of $31,511.20 of a total repatriation budget of $63,745. Hui'iwi Kuamo'o, on the other hand, they paid out of pocket and did some crowdfunding as well as received grants to pay for their 8 members as well as 13 other Hawaiian practitioners. Their portion, they paid approximately $100,055.22, and then a crate for the Ahu'ula, which was another $7,925. Now, I was told that this excluded ground transport, meals, and media contract, and the actual expenses were closer to $200,000, but I haven't seen the actual numbers from Hui'iwi Kuamo'o, but we could request those. Next slide, please. That concludes the repatriation travel to Europe and the East Coast that took place in April and May. Are there any questions for Kuike or myself?
First of all, mahalo to you, to whatever degree. We want to thank you for your choreography of such an important mission. It's very, very important. And I'll start with the questions of how deep is the federal landscape when it comes to this type of movement? of such important monuments. And Evie, is it smooth, or do we have to look towards lobbying for?
No, I think
a
it's
smoother-
it's pretty smooth in that we keep close communication with our contacts at the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, who work out of DC, and they're, you know, under the Department of Interior. We often work closely with them, especially on international matters, and they've been very helpful coordinating with the Department of State. I mean, they're very helpful when we were in the discussions with the SPK. When it came to the immunity of seizure, they spoke with their attorneys and they provided the responses that the SPK needed to hear. Because basically it's the DO and the Department of State that are overseeing things like immunity of seizure and exportation certificates under the STOP Act. So I believe we have good contacts currently at the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations that have been very helpful on the repatriation front. And from time to time, they've also issued formal letters of support for OHA's efforts.
Okay, very good. I do know we want to hear from one of our trustees who's actually there. Trustee Ahuna?
No, thank you. I just wanted to add that that was a very humble answer because what I've learned is these guys worked on this for years, started from 2021. There's this layers and layers of work that they did, and I mean, for him to say, "Oh, it was okay," I just feel differently. I mean, they worked really hard. What I was mostly proud of was our staff, our two staff. I mean, I found out about this shit last minute. I actually found out the night before the first Ava ceremony. They already left to Germany. I only attended the Peabody Museum and the Smithsonian. But the ceremonies went well. I learned a lot about what's going on at these museums. I talked to the NAGPRA director. And, you know, even at Harvard, you got people going to the museums and just like sitting down and protesting things going on. And they wanted to know more about our policies and of repatriation. And I think Kamakana and Kuike did a very good job, you know, with speaking with all these museums. The last thing I wanted to say was, you know, this repatriation is so important. There's so many delicate things that they have to do. Like even when we went to the airport, I felt like a rock star because as soon as we got to the gates, this was like security came and they actually let us in and they guided us into the plane, and it was well directed. And so I just wanted to thank our OHA staff for that and for representing us. And they really did a good job, these two guys. So thank you so much.
Well, mahalo for your reflecting. Trustees, any discussion, any questions? Oh, good job. Well, thank you so very much for what you do. If there's any way that we can advise or let the congressional delegation know, I think that'd be very helpful too. Vice Chair?
Mahalo. I just want to say mahalo to you, to the three of you for, Stacey, to you as well for all your coordination on this to ensure that our Iwi Kupuna are returned safely home, and the all that was entailed to do this. So mahalo for doing all that you've been doing leading up to this and sharing with us.
Kuike.
Mahalo, Chair, for the opportunity to share. I just want to share just, you know, just a short, brief mana'o about the spiritual burden. Yeah. By the end of the trip, I touched ground at 15 airports, 7 countries, 5 time zones in 14 days. You know, just travel alone, the physical burden, not only that, understanding, you know, the kuleana of bringing our kupuna home. And sometimes the kupuna has been stolen over 150, 200 years ago, right? So that angst and that anticipation of them coming home to a home that they don't recognize, it takes a toll on, you know, the spiritual well-being of the staff that we send there. So I just want to mahalo you folks for the opportunity to carry on this work and for your continued support. Mahalo.
Good. Mahalo for what you did. Appreciate it. If there's anything that the board can assist you with, you've come and visit us again, okay? Appreciate that. Mahalo. Trustees, anything else on this matter? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed to item B, Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, I have a few more slides for
Oh,
the,
you do?
for the
Okay.
New York and Chicago,
Oh, come
trip,
on.
but Kuike wasn't a part of that. Can you bring up the presentation again? Thanks for the reminder. Hopefully we can get through this quickly. Yes, you bring it to slide 18, please. Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the second half of the presentation. Oh wait, yeah, Sharon. Wait, you have to start it from slide 18, please. No, it's on there. Yeah. Yeah, you can do it this way.
Well, museums have a lot of our stuff, you know. Yeah, canoes and all.
We're looking to bring them home? Really?
Okay, I'm going to proceed with the second part of the presentation. There was another repatriation that occurred June 16th to June 20th. It was in New York and Chicago. Again, this was also previously budgeted for, and there was also an action memo that had activated the travel itinerary in January of 2025. Next slide, please. So the purpose for these repatriations, the first one, repatriation of a burial kappa from Chicago Field Museum. This actually originates from some research that was done somewhat in partnership with the University of Hawaii. There was a graduate student who had located burial kappa from Kona that was in a numbered edition of this book called Specimens of Hawaiian Kappa that was in the UH Manoa Library as well as the Hilo Library. And the library staff there were able to find other numbered editions of this book that existed in other institutions abroad. And Chicago Field Museum was one of them, and they were able to confirm it. We worked closely with Nahua Aloha o ka Pu'uhonua o Honaunau on the repatriation. They're very active in Kona. I have a separate slide that kind of describes our relationship with them. The second repatriation was for a mahe ole. It's a helmet from the American Museum of Natural History. This is really a continuation of an existing claim for an akua hulu that was repatriated last year. It's believed it came from the Haleokeawe, and it's part of a greater effort to repatriate funeral objects from the Haleokeawe. OHA compliance put a lot of time back in 2017, 2018. We did a bunch of NAGPR workshops in Kona, and there was a lot of interest in getting back these funerary objects from the Haleokeawe from various institutions. And so we've been working closely with lineal and cultural descendants from Honaunau that are part of the Nahua Aloha group. Next slide, please. So this collaboration with Nahua Aloha, as I said, they're made up of lineal and cultural descendants from Honaunau. They're actively involved with cultural activities and ceremonies throughout Kona. The members have very close affiliation with Haleokeawe. Many of their family members carved the first recreated ki'i at the national park. They actively assist the National Park Service with NAGPR reburials as well as the care of Haleokeawe in general. They participate in many ceremonies that take place over there. And as I said, OHA compliance has been working with these families as far back as 2018, actually a little bit before that as well. Shane, who also who no longer works at OHA, he's actually part of this hui, and he was very helpful in the beginning of getting OHA engaged with these families. And as a result of this collaboration, we've made several joint claims with Nahua Aloha to return objects taken from Haleokeawe. We don't have any further claims left, but the work has resulted in 3 successful claims. Next slide, please. So the first repatriation that occurred in the American Museum of Natural History on June 17th, we had actually departed the day before and arrived in the morning, and we went to conduct the repatriation in the afternoon. Next slide, please. At the request of the descendants, it was a private ceremony. There was no public ceremony in this particular case for the Mahiole. Part of that had to do with the descendants didn't want widespread recognition about this repatriation. Also, last year when the Akua Hulu Manu that accompanied this helmet was returned, there was already an Aha Ava ceremony that had taken place, and they had already participated in a short article with the American Museum of Natural History. So they didn't really want a big event this time around. And so they actually only sent one individual from Nahua Aloha who conducted the culture ceremonies. But AMH, the museum staff was very respectful. They provided light refreshments afterwards, and we got to discuss their collections with them. Turns out they have other funerary objects there that are going to need to be returned at some point, and we're actively involved in looking into that. So the Mahiole was ultimately to be reunited with the Akua Hulu that was already there. They actually came in together to the museum over 100 years ago, and nobody had thought actually to see if the helmet actually fit the Akua Hulu Manu. But there are historical sources that talk about a helmeted Akua Hulu Manu that came from Haleokeawe. And so I had in my notes, I'm like, well, we should try to see if this helmet fits, because I'm not sure how much you know about Akua Hulu Manu, but they come in all different shapes and sizes. And for this helmet to fit that Akua was pretty significant. And the museum also thought so, and was on board with generating a separate claim to bring back that helmet. And so that's why we were there, and that's what we were doing. In terms of long-term auctions, we do already have a temporary agreement brokered with the National Park Service to have these items curated in their facilities. But in terms of long-term options, there might be something in partnership with the National Park Service, but also possibly with Kamehameha schools as well. Next slide, please. The next stop was the Chicago Field Museum in Chicago, Illinois. This was for the burial kappa. Next slide, please. Again, this was a private ceremony. There was the descendants did not want a public ceremony, and the Nahua Aloha representative that was there took care of the cultural protocols. The museum staff were very accommodating. They also provided light refreshments after the repatriation was completed, and the burial kappa was taken with the representative from Nahua Aloha, and arrangements for reburial took place upon its return to Kona. Next slide, please. In terms of costs for this one, it was significant. Oh, go back one. Significantly less than the Europe trip. There's one OHA staff, which was myself, and then one Nahua Aloha member. It's about $2,025 per person, approximate total of $4,050 of a remaining repatriation budget that was previously approved of $32,233.80. Next slide, and then basically if there's any questions about that trip that had occurred.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Trustees, it's your time. I'd like to suggest, well, it's following this question. Are the objects hid away when you pick them up, or are they prominently displayed?
It depends. In this particular case, they had been removed from display. I mean, ever since we inquired about the Akua Hulu Manu a few years back, they removed it from display and kept it in their storeroom in the back because there was a pending claim.
You know, in your in-house discussions, you may want to consider when we remove something, we replace it with something. Our story, as an example, that the museum can display. So it talks about this beautiful culture that we have.
No,
I
that's a fair point. many indigenous individuals have been doing that, not just Native Americans. The Maori from New Zealand are known for doing that. We didn't do that in this particular case. Nahua Aloha did present makana, though. I neglected to include that in the slides, but they are cognizant of that. But that is something to consider, yes.
Yes, something more than Hawaiian Host chocolates. You know what I mean? But something that they can actually display. So it talks about Hawaii. But Vice Chair first. So go ahead.
I just wanted to add, when we went to the Peabody Museum, we gave them the hulu and they couldn't accept it, right? Didn't they? So they gave us back. For some reason, we couldn't give them anything. And I think they gave us back. And so I don't know what the protocols are, but I know that happened when we went to the Peabody Museum.
I see. Something more general than like a billboard or something like that that they can display in their museum. That's a,
Of course, we'd have to budget for that.
yeah, and they'll come here
Yeah.
to this board. Vice Chair.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Maybe we can look at what would be appropriate in terms of a portrait or display showing what was once with them that is now returned to us, and so that those that are visiting the museum know that this is good practice and that this is should be encouraged in terms of the return of various mea to the host cultures and the host place, that they want to support that. So I think that's a good idea. But of course, appropriately done, and then we can be on the same page with the various museums to see what their practices and laws are in terms of what makes sense. Thank you.
Chair Lindsay.
Thank you. Kamakana, since we are the state agency responsible for these repatriations, along with private groups, do we have a register on where these key ivikupuna is being buried?
So we primarily been our primary partner has been Hui'iwi Kumo, and they have been keeping the records. They're not stored within the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And there are pros and cons to that. I mean, if somebody were to file a UIPA, OA would have to provide that information. But with it being housed within Hui'iwi Kumo, they're not obligated to.
Is that a good thing?
Well, we're actively revising our standard operating procedures for repatriations now, and we are actively thinking about it.
Yeah, I would think that some lineal descendants would want to know, and what if that information is not released to them?
Well, we put them in contact with Halealoha about the reburial, but we wouldn't disclose the information. At least that's not our current practice.
Kapuana.
Kamakana, can you share with the trustees what we've talked about in terms of typically who's making the claims, right? So we have talked about when there are no identified lineal descendants, then we would want to approach notification like Chair Emerita is suggesting, but most often it is lineal descendants who are coming forward for the claims.
Yeah, usually, so the way that OA compliance is operated, we're very service oriented, meaning that descendants come to us requesting assistance. Often it's exclusively been Halealoha Aiao. I mean, not 100% of the time. Of course, there's a few other cases like with Kona. But that's how we get activated. It's not OHA proactively hunting these items down. We simply don't have the staff to do that, nor it's questionable whether or not we should. Yes, we do have we're listed in NAGPRA, but we're only listed as an example of an NHO. That doesn't preclude any other NHO from also applying. Hui Malama was also included in there. But they're included as examples, not the be-all, end-all. OHA's standing is a little bit more different in the international arena, given our constitutional mandate. That's a little bit different. NAGPRA is also, international institutions are also not governed under NAGPRA, but they often look to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, given our constitutional standing, to represent the interest of Native Hawaiians.
You know, Kamakana, as an overarching theme, though, as we lean further into the EV community, we're going to answer these questions. I mean, Chair Lindsay has I think, a legitimate point. So no one person has everything. And I'm in particular, and on the record, I'm going to talk about Hale Aloha. He cannot have all the ike on this. So what we want to do is want to find a sweet spot. So OHA is going to participate. That's what we're suggesting, I think. Chair? Okay. The trustees, anything else? Kapuana? No? Kamakana? Paul? Thank you so much. Okay. So seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed to item B under new business, a presentation by the administration to update key steps and deadlines in the development of OHA's 2026 legislative package. Yeah.
Mahalo, Chair. At this time, I'd like to call our Chief Advocate, Lena Alale.
Okay. Before you do so, let's begin with public testimony. Leanne, has anyone signed up to testify in this in person or online?
No one has signed up, Chair.
Okay. Okay, Lena, the floor is yours.
Good morning, trustees. This is just a very brief update for visibility on the development of our 2026 legislative package, because we do have some deadlines coming up on us that we want you all to be aware of. And we'll be seeking your input. So if you could go to the first slide. Thank you. So this is further information about some of the work we've been doing. We sent out a survey to our beneficiaries asking for their input on the prioritization of our different MIMO directions and core Series 2100 advocacy areas, which is EV, ceded lands, VI, Olelo Hawaii, culture, and also giving them the opportunity just in a blank space to let us know if there's other issues that aren't already on our list that they would like to see us active on. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure if all of the BOT is signed up for this list. So I will forward you the email with the survey so that you have it. And also you can send it to your own beneficiary contacts and Native Hawaiian organizations, because it's meant to be similar to what DHHL does, which is, send out a wide-ranging survey to beneficiaries to find out, their input on where we should be focusing our legislative attention. So we have input coming in through that and other one-on-one channels that we're reaching out to both legislators and other NHOs. We are going to be reaching out to your aides for Stacy and I to have one-on-one meetings with you the week of September 8th through 12th. So if you could have your aides let us know as soon as possible, if for some reason that time period doesn't work for you all, so that we can arrange another time. But Stacey and I did want to have the opportunity to meet with you all before we do an initial discussion of initial public discussion of what our 2026 legislative priorities should be, just so we know if you have any informational questions that we need to be researching, if there's any issues you want to see us follow up from last year, or anything else we should be aware of as we're developing our 2026 package. Our beneficiary survey, I was just talking about, the deadline is September 15th. So on the 17th, Advocacy will be presenting an initial set of ideas based on all the information we've gathered in our one-on-one meetings about what should be our legislative priorities for 2026. It won't be the bill package. We're not going to have everything all drafted up, because that would defeat the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that we're in alignment with the board's priorities before we dedicate the staff time to actually drafting bills, because that's very time intensive. So we really want to be sure we're on the same page, and again, that we're in alignment with the BOT. And then I just got confirmation, due to different scheduling issues, We're going to move our September 17th reception with legislative, or just with state legislators from the 17th to the 29th. So hopefully that date works for you all. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, that September meeting is going to be the green light from you all to move forward on what should be the 2026 legislative priorities. So then the staff will actually be in the next few weeks actually drafting up those bills so that we can present to you in written format through the BAE action item on October 15th and 16th. Like, what are the bills that are going to be part of OHA's legislative package for you all to vote on? And the idea with the early development and approval is that we will have a workshop at the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs meeting at the end of October and present our tentative package and see what type of feedback we get, if there's any adjustments to the bills that we want to make before finalizing them. And then we'll have the actual final legislative package that we'll be submitting to the administration, voted on November 12th and 13th in the BAE and BOT meetings. And then once that package is in final form, that's when the advocacy staff is going to be going out and presenting to community, which we had previously discussed, doing community empowerment forums with the, just in different, so at the top of the slide, it says develop the comms and community engagement plan. So basically November through December, we're going to be doing these forums, but we really still do need to firm up with our other PIA. What are the best places to reach the most beneficiaries? Where would it be most useful for us to be actually doing these community empowerment forums? You know, there's some low-hanging fruit with like Hawaiian Homeland Associations, our key partner organizations, but we do want to be reaching as many beneficiaries as we can given our staff constraints. So that is something that advocacy will need to be developing with other PIA. And then we submit our package to leadership at the end of December. We have traditionally, just to be clear, ours is not submitted to the governor. DHHL does submit theirs to the governor to be part of the state package, but we traditionally have not done that. And that's why we usually have ours introduced through the Native Hawaiian Caucus. And the final slide is just kind of additional background. It matches up with the matrices that we had last year. And this is kind of, now that we are filling out our staff within advocacy, these are the primary subject areas that we have people assigned to work on to help enable us to better, you know, cover all the issues that arise during legislative session. This list isn't comprehensive of everything that might come up, but are the core areas that I expect that the advocacy PIA should have expertise in and be able to develop legislation in these different areas. That's it.
Oh, that's
Super
it?
short.
Okay, appreciate that. And, you know, by the way, next year's election year, so I don't see too much profiles in courage coming out of the Capitol,
Okay.
but it's okay.
Yeah, keep
Yeah.
that in mind.
Okay, the time now is yours, trustees. Anything? Okay, Vice Chair? Hold on, Lena Ala. Hold on. Vice Chair?
I think it's good that we have the Association of Hawaiian Civic Club Conventions mentioned here, and we have the upcoming CNHA conference. And I'm thinking with the CNHA conference and with our upcoming remaining island community meetings that we have, let's see, we have Hawaii Island, the Oahu ones, as well as Lanai. And I think maybe that's an opportunity where a staffer, maybe a beneficiary service staff, or somebody from the advocacy team can be present with a pad or a written, how do you say, like a physical paper version to do these surveys, or to be able to gain a better understanding of what they feel the priorities are, or if at that point we already have the package going, what their mana'o is on it. But when I think about the different conferences that we might attend, those are often times where that's the opportunity when you're registering. They might have, they might ask if you'd be open or have time to do a survey, a quick survey that might take a minute or two, maybe a few minutes, and then you click on the various options and share comments. But I think that would be a prime opportunity to be able to reach our beneficiaries.
Mahalo, trustee. Yeah, I agree. That sounds like a
Yeah.
good plan.
Thank you.
Chair.
Mahalo.
Chair.
Kapohana.
So just launching from that idea, I think we can also do a QR code. So folks as they're registering, just use their camera, it'll pop up. And we are encouraging folks to go to our website and do it online as well. Because that will decrease the amount of inputting that we'll need to do if we can capture all of that electronically. But mahalo for that.
It's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Mahalo. Thank you, Leonela. Well, trustees, anything else? No? Okay. Mahalo. Seeing no further discussion, we will now proceed to item C under new business, Island Burial Council nominations. Action item BAE 25-06, approval of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs 2025 nominees for the Moloka'i Island Burial Council, and to authorize the administration to timely transmit these nominations to the governor. La'akea Ke Poi Poi, nominee for Moloka'i Island Burial Council. Luann Mahili Langford Favorito, nominee for Ho'olehua Pala'au Representative, Moloka'i Island Burial Council. We'll begin with public testimony. Leanne, has anyone signed up to testify?
There are no testifiers at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to move that we approve this action item.
okay. We have a motion. We don't need a second. Don't need a second. Okay, any discussion on the matter? If not, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Trustee Ahuda,
Aye.
Vice Chair Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Alapa is excused, Chair Galutaria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele,
I saw Trustee Kahele on, yeah. He's on?
Trustee Kahele, Trustee Lindsay,
Aye.
Trustee Souza, Trustee Waihe is excused. You have 6 votes, motion passes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Trustee Lindsay.
I move that we move into executive session.
Okay, now we're going to switch a little bit because before we enter executive session, I like to take agenda item 4, community concerns and celebrations, out of order. So once we come out, we can finish up. Would that be okay, trustees? Okay. Okay, so I'm asking for unanimous consent to take the matter out of order. Is there any objections? If none, we'll proceed with community concerns and celebrations. Okay. Do we have any testimony? Leanne?
No.
No?
Lena said we can defer because there's.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to defer this matter.
No, so nothing defer. No, you're deferring the executive session.
Yeah, we're deferring.
So continue with the community concerns celebrations.
Okay, community concerns, celebrations. No? See none? Okay, 1 second, everyone. Yeah, okay, trustees, there's nothing new on Papahanaumoku Kea. So the advocate has asked that we defer this executive session because there's nothing to report.
So, Mr. Chair, I withdraw our motion, my motion.
Okay, that's the right answer. Thank you so much.
So I move that we adjourn.
Okay. Okay, hold on 1 second. Before adjournment, Vice Chair.
Mahalo. Just under announcements, I want to share that yesterday at 11 a.m., the Hawaii County Council did have a hearing with the Policy Committee on Environmental and Natural Resource Management, specifically on a resolution regarding Pohakuloa. And I want to mahalo the chair of that committee, Councilmember Villegas, for her support and introducing this resolution. And to all the, I believe it was 8 present voting council members that all supported this resolution. And I also want to say mahalo to our beneficiaries and the public that spoke in support. And I believe that this is a part of our kuleana as the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, as we're constitutionally mandated to advocate regarding our Hawaiian Kingdom Crown and Government lands. And I look forward to our board and administration further discussing how we can best move forward in a position that makes sense, that we can properly advocate in this matter.
Mahalo. Thank you so much. Okay. Mahalo. Now, members, the Committee on Budget and Finance will meet at 11 a.m. today. And mahalo to everyone for your participation this morning. If there's no further business, we'll proceed to a vote on the motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Yes, we do. Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
Vice Chair Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina.
Aye.
Trustee Lapa is excused. Chair Galutaria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele. Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza. Not present. Trustee Waihee is excused. You have 5 votes to adjourn.
Okay, we got 5 votes, so we're adjourned.